Hi, welcome. A scenario came up today where, hypothetically, somebody wanted to move from creating resources directly in Azure RM, so resource, thing, declaration, and they wanted to be able to say, okay, well, if I wanted to move that into a module, could I do that relatively easily? And I was like, well, yeah, you can. The new moved support in Terraform should be able to do that, but I'd never tried it, so I thought let's try it out. So let's have a look. What we're going to do is move a Key Vault resource from a native Azure RM resource into a module. So let's go and have a look at that now. This is my repo that I've got. There's some boring stuff here, which just randomizes the naming and the location of the resources. So we don't have to look at that too much. We've got this stuff here, which is, we need this data source because with Key Vault, you need the tenant ID. In the resource group, obviously, we need to put the resources somewhere. So let's quickly give ourselves a Key Vault. I haven't spelled that right. I used to call it before move. There we go. Oops. There we go. So we're going to need some properties in here. Let's give it a name. We're going to actually make this the module.naming.keyvault.name unique. Thanks, Copilot. We're going to location. We're going to have that as the resource group's location. Thanks again to Copilot. Tenant ID. That's going to be the data. That's the one. And the SKU name, which we need, yeah, that needs to be standard. Let's not worry about that. We also need the resource group name, which I don't think we've got now. Yes. Let's type that right. Cool. So that will provision my resource in its most basic configuration before we move it. So let's bring up a terminal and make sure we're initted and go to apply, and then let's look at the plan and approve it. That's going to create a couple of things, a couple of random numbers because we've got random naming providers and random location providers. So it's going to do 5 things, the most interesting of which is the resource group and the Key Vault. Okay, so that's going to do that. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, Key Vault takes about 1.5 to 2 minutes to provision. So what we're going to do is speed this bit up. Cool. So that took a little bit longer, 2.5 minutes. We've now got our Key Vault there. Now let's try and move it into a module without disrupting the deployed resources. So first thing we're going to use is to use a good quality Key Vault module. Now, I just so happen to have one. AVM Key Vault. That'll do, AVM Key Vault. That's fine. Should we go like that? Yeah, let's go like that. Okay, so the source of this module is Azure. AVM res Key Vault. And now this module is from a program of work called Azure Verified Modules, which is starting to provide some really, really good standards around creating both Bicep and Terraform modules for Azure. So keep your eye out. If you haven't seen that, you can look at it at aka.ms/avm and check it out. It's really, really good. Slight humble brag here because I'm a part of that and I help run that. But yeah, let's be good here and stick a version declaration in, shall we? Okay, so the next thing we need to do is clear that init. Apparently I've spelt that wrong. Oh, yes, of course I have. What have I forgotten? The Azure RM on the end. Right. Now that'll work. Okay. So now what we should get all sorts of tooltips and stuff here. So all sorts of help. So the first thing we need to do is duplicate the standard stuff like the name. So we're going to just keep that the same as it was because we want the same name for our resource. We want the same location for our resource. So here we don't want to redeploy it to a different location. The tenant ID is also the same. So let's keep the tenant ID the same. And the resource group name. Yeah, cool. All right, so let's just try that and see what happens. So we've initted it. So I guess now we can take this out, because what we're going to do is we're going to replace the Key Vault module, the Key Vault resource, sorry, with the module which deploys the Key Vault resource. Now, what would have happened before, and I can't remember which Terraform version it is, well, what would have happened before is that Terraform would now delete and recreate that resource. And in fact, that's what it will do now. If I just run a Terraform plan, it's going to say, oh, you want me to delete and recreate that. So we don't want that. We want to essentially tell Terraform to move the state from one address to another address. So yeah, you can see that it's going to delete that one and it's going to create a new one. So we don't want that. So what we can do now is do a thing called moved. So it's only got two things that we need to tell it to. We need to tell it to do. So the first is azurerm resource group key vault dot before move. So that should be from. So we're going to move it from there to my module, which AVM key vault, and the resource within that module is azurerm key vault. And I happen to know it's called this. So whatever it's called inside the module, and we should actually be able to tell that from the plan that we just created. Yeah, so module AVM key vault, azurerm key vault dot this. So you know what that's called. We know what it's called in our root module here because we've just created it. Sorry, here. So yeah, cool. So now let's see what happens. Let's clear that. Let's run a plan. That's going to do a quick refresh. And what's it going to say? Okay. Okay, so we've got some stuff. So this module has telemetry built into it. So if we don't want to create those telemetry resources, we should disable the telemetry. And we're also going to change some of these properties here because the module defaults are not the same as the resource defaults in Azure RM. And that is because Azure Verified Modules has a secure by default approach to it. So actually, when you deploy a Key Vault using the Azure Verified module, you won't have public network access. You won't be able to get to it, and certain other security defaults are kind of enabled. So let's, for a start, look at disabling telemetry, so we can just keep this as slightly cleaner. So enable telemetry is false. Okay, so let's just do another plan and find out what the differences are now. Okay, so enable RBAC authorization is going to be set to true. Purge protection enabled is going to be set to true. SKU name is going to be switched from standard to premium. Maybe I don't want that actually. And the network ACLs are going to be put in. So these network ACLs actually effectively deny public access to it because they set the bypass to none and they set the default action to deny. But I do want public access and I want the standard SKU, but the rest of it I think are sensible defaults. So I'm going to leave them there. But in reality, if you wanted to change them, you could, and you could make it match. So let's go SKU name equals standard. And what was the other thing we wanted to do? Oh, network ACLs. Let's disable the network ACLs, which we have to do explicitly by selecting them, setting them to null. Okay. Actually, I'm going to keep purge protection disabled now. Purge protection enabled is false. Okay, so now let's run a Terraform plan. And there we go. So the only thing that's going to change is this RBAC authorization. And the reason I haven't done that in the module is because the module doesn't support anything but enable RBAC authorization. And for those that perhaps don't know what that is, that's the use of Azure AD as the authorization provider instead of using a Key Vault access policy, which is kind of the Azure AD, or Entra ID, I should say now, is the new recommended way of doing things. And the module just doesn't support the old way. So you do have to watch out for that. If you are looking to migrate to modules, you have to make sure that the modules support the configuration that you need. But for the purposes of this, let's just go ahead and apply that. Oops. Apply. I'm going to auto approve it because I know what the plan is. And there you go. So what's going to happen now is it's going to make one change to that resource and move the state over. So that is how you can migrate from one module to another or a native resource into a module without actually disrupting the deployed resources. I think that's really cool. Have a play with it yourself. It's as simple as that, really, and then matching up the configuration. The nice thing is now is we don't have to delete that moved block. We can just run terraform apply again, and it will go, yeah, cool, everything's fine. You don't need to worry about it. Like that. There you go. So there's a really quick demo of how to use the move block in Terraform. In this case, we moved from a native resource to using an Azure Verified module. What we did is we matched the module settings with that of the deployed resource where possible. And as such, we could simply run terraform apply and move the state from the native resource into the module. Now, if we'd have managed to get the settings completely aligned, then actually there would have been no changes to the deployed resource at all. So effectively, it's a no operation in terms of Azure's concerned. It's just an internal Terraform change. But there you go. I hope that was useful. Proves it can be done. Please, if you found this useful, give us a like and a subscribe. I'd much appreciate it. Thank you very much.